gang, Jim Spellos here, and we have a great interview today. Trina Rozen of Rozen CPA is our guest. Now, a little backstory. About a week or two ago, Diane Devitt, a good friend of mine, did an amazing webinar of a series that she's doing called Survive and Thrive. And in that, Trina gave a fantastic presentation about the Paycheck Protection Program and the stimulus package and all that, and what it meant into the hospitality industry. But what really is needed is an update right now that's not just focused on one industry, but on anyone who's looking at all that information. So I'm going to pass it over to Trina by asking her to comment on the fact that the SBA did run out of the $349 billion from the first package. What's up with that?
Hi, Jim. Well, there's obviously nothing is without a controversy. So the money is gone for now, but they are working on another package. And we're now finding out people like Shake Shack and Chris Ruth Steakhouse have been applying for those loans as well. So there's controversy of how are they a small business versus a small moms and pops restaurant. So Shake Shack this morning decided that they're going to give back the $10 million. So there's all this controversy that obviously none of us can control, but what we can control is the fact that when there is more money, and hopefully this week or early next week, we are ready with our numbers, we're ready back into the application mode. And a lot of my clients are, unfortunately, are kind of stalling because they don't know where to get the numbers and they're still thinking. So hopefully with this webinar, we can explain out how to get ready for when they open up this loan program again, something that all of us can't control, is just our own actions. So get your paperwork together in order. Once they open it up, you'll be the first one in line. So that's what it's geared for.
Awesome. So Trina's just going to take it away right now, and she's going to do a presentation. We'll have some questions that we'll ask. So Trina, I'm going to shut up. It's all yours.
So I'm going to start my PowerPoint here and just kind of jump in. And so this presentation is a result of something that we did with Diane, just like Jim said, 2 weeks ago. And there were so many overwhelming amount of questions from sole proprietors and independents that really don't have employees. And you know, that just prompted me to create this presentation just for those people that need extra help calculating their amounts considering they have no employees. So I kind of put together this graphic of steps for any sole proprietor to take. So if you're a sole proprietor and you have no gross receipts due to the shutdown, you're just completely stopped at business, your first step is to apply for unemployment with your state unemployment office. And just you remember with the CARES package, unemployment is now open to sole proprietors. So that's a good place to start. I don't know any of my clients that have gotten positive results. Again, unemployment is just so overwhelmed. And at this point, we're just telling people, just get in line. And at some point, you will get a human to talk to you. Step number 2, apply for Paycheck Protection Program, which we know have opened on April 10th. Even if the money ran out over the weekend, there will be more money. And if there's not enough money with the second stimulus, believe me, there will be a third one. So most importantly, get in line, have your numbers together. And step number 3, apply for EIDL, which is an SBA product, and we'll discuss it later in the slides. So pretty much 3 steps that are available to you that you can take advantage of right now, just so you can hang on through this crisis. And just a quick note that you will have to stop unemployment once you get your PPP loan, or you will be owing unemployment repayments to your state. So just kind of remember that you cannot double dip there. A quick reminder. And again, we all know what Paycheck Protection Program is by now. It was designed to provide access to cash quickly. Obviously, we know that didn't happen, but it is in the process. You know, they're trying really hard, so don't give up hope. And so basically, it's a forgivable loan that can turn into a grant. You will not have to repay the principal or the accrued interest if you use the proceeds correctly for the 8 weeks after you get the loan. And again, it's a temporary new product with SBA family. It's 100% federally guaranteed. So there is no personal guarantee. Nobody's going to ask you for a credit check or your tax return. And what we're hearing now is you're only able to apply through your bank where you have a business relationship with. Later in the slides, I'm giving few links to the online SBA lenders, and you do not have to have an account with them. I actually have one success story with a client. They are going through the loan docs right now, so it's a real thing. They are getting a loan through this online bank. Again, the loan may be forgiven if you use the funds correctly. Very low interest rates, just 1%. We know that the first 349 billion have already run out. More is coming, don't despair. And so, you know, the next question you may have as an independent, well, how much can I borrow? And you can borrow up to 2.5 times of your average monthly payroll cost. It is capped at $100,000. And the next question you have, what are you talking about? I'm an independent, I don't pay myself payroll. So last week we actually got guidance from SBA on how to figure out equivalent of monthly payroll costs for independents. So you are an independent or a sole proprietorship if you report your income on Schedule C with your individual tax return. So, and you do not have employees, so this presentation is for you. As long as you were in business on February 15th, you're able to apply. Your salary will be determined by your net profit reported on your 2019 Schedule C. So if you get that together, they will ask you, the banks will ask you for that information. Again, you're subject to $100,000 annual limitation. So if your net profit for 2019 was $150,000, you're going to bring it back down to $100,000 for figuring out the maximum amount for this loan. And again, the program started on April 10th. And so what information will you be required to provide to the bank? SBA guidance was very, very clear on that. You will need your 2019 Form 1040 Schedule C. What if you haven't filed that? They will accept the draft form. You should get your ducks in a row and get that in order while we're waiting for the second wave of funding. There's no reason why you should not have that form.
Trina, so if you haven't filed, you said get it done now. Is it advantageous to file sooner rather than later?
Yes, you should file ASAP. You should get with your accountant now. They could provide you a draft. They will accept a draft for this program. So, get your profit and loss to your accountant. They don't have to finish your entire return, but they can finish your Schedule C so you can use it for this program. They will also require you, some banks will require you to provide their 2019 bank statements, your bookkeeping records, your 2020 bank statements to make sure that you were in business as of February 15, 2020. So there's a little more requirements on the sole proprietor than maybe on the companies, but get ready with that. That's something that you can control and get it ready. This is your Schedule C. If you don't know how it looks, you're going to be very familiar with this form, looking through your tax return. And the number here that I'm highlighted, that's your number that you need to be looking for, line 31, net profit. And that's how your PPP loan amount will be based on this number. So again, as I said earlier, if this number on line 31 is over $100,000, the max that could be on this line is $100,000. So that's what you're going to be using to figure out this amount. So some of my clients had a loss last year, or their net profit was 0 or less. Unfortunately, you're not going to be eligible for this loan. if you ran a loss in your 2019 Schedule C, which could happen if you made some investments, you bought equipment, you just started a business. It is understandable that you would have a loss. Unfortunately, you're out of luck on this program. And so how do we figure out what amount that we're going to put on our application for PPP? Again, you're going to take your net profit from line 31, you're going to divide it by 12, and that's going to be your average monthly payroll amount as it relates to you, sole proprietor. You're going to multiply it by 2.5, and that's the total amount of the loan that you will be requesting. We will have, I'm sure, more guidance from SBA as it relates on the forgiveness portion, but these are two important numbers that you can come up with either on your own or with the help from your accountant, but be ready with those numbers. Will you be able to add your health insurance costs to your payroll cost calculation? And I was so hoping that SBA would make it clear, but they did not as of yet. So just have that number ready, know how much you have paid for 2019 for your annual health insurance costs. And if you had any retirement benefits, go ahead and just have those numbers available just in case SBA decides that that is something that they will allow. That's a good thing to have. The whole point once you get the PPP loan is to have it 100% forgiven. That's what I tell my clients. That's the reason to get this loan, so you can use it to survive. And how do we work to make sure that 100% of the loan will be forgivable?
Trina, I got a question for you about that. Some sole proprietors I know run their account through their personal rather than their business.
And that's unfortunate, Jim. And that's just unfortunate. They should open a business account right away. So I think the days of just running everything through personal will be ending because of this PPP program. I do have a client that called me. They were denied the PPP loan with Bank of America because they only had a personal account. So what I did is I referred them to online lenders to see if they can help. So that's what we do at this point. But the best thing is just open a new business checking account. And, hopefully you can get into the PPP through that. So again, you will be asked to substantiate the way you use the loan. So your bookkeeping has to be perfect. So work with your bookkeeper, with your CPA on how to do that. You will require documentation, and it's going to be an important part of the forgiveness process. So no more than 25% of the loan forgiveness amount may be attributable to non-payroll costs. So a lot of sole proprietors, they don't have an office. They work from home. They work from, their home office. So later in the slides, we'll talk about on how to allocate your home office costs to this 25% of the loan forgiveness. Again, your owner compensation replacement will be calculated based on your 2019 net profit. And Jim, I'll tell you, after I did this presentation last week, I actually got a call from one of my clients that said, I don't have owner compensation. And I said, look, listen to this webinar again. You do for the purposes of this PPP loan.
So health insurance premiums, you mentioned that SBA is not really set anything up. So are they included in payroll costs?
So they are the healthcare costs are included in payroll costs for the companies that have employees, but they're not included. There was no mention in SBA guidance of what happens to sole proprietors' healthcare costs. And I was really disappointed because sole proprietors are humans and they need healthcare. So we're just waiting on more clarification. But again, know how much you paid for 2019 and know how much it's costing you in 2020. And by the time we're done with all this, you might be able to use it. So let's keep our fingers crossed on that. Your loan forgiveness will be done through your lender. So the bank that gave you the loan will be underwriting this loan forgiveness. It's not going to be done through an SBA. You don't have to go anywhere else. Your banker will work with you on your loan forgiveness. Again, understand the difference between 8 weeks covered period, max payroll costs, and what your loan is based on. So that's a trap for all of us to watch out, because if you remember, your loan amount is based on 2.5 months of this so-called payroll costs, but you're only using them up in 8 weeks. So you're like 4.5 weeks short there. So that's why it's really important to plan with your CPA of how to use it correctly. So you can spend no more than 25% on the loan, on rent, utilities, and at this point, we think that internet will be included in the utilities, because I get that question all the time. What is utilities? You will be able to use it for interest on the mortgage loans, no principal. So if you work from home, you can use the allocation that you used on your Schedule C to pay some of your interest on the home office. Interest on auto loan, no principal. Interest on payments on other debt. So if you had some credit card related debt that was truly a business debt, so you can use that as well. And at the bottom of the slide, highlighted in red, you must have claimed the deduction for such expenses on your 2019 Schedule C to be permissible for this forgiveness. So if you did not have an office on your 2019 Schedule C, do not go out and get a commercial space right now. It's not going to be part of this forgiveness. If you did not write off utilities for your home office, you're going to be disallowed if all of a sudden you decide to use utilities as part of this. So just really, they don't want anyone to go out and incur new obligations just to satisfy this forgiveness. They will strictly look and examine your 2019 Schedule C. And again, caution, consider opening a separate business checking account. There is no guidance from SBA. It's not a requirement. There is a consensus now in our profession, at least, we are advising clients, please keep a very separate record of when you get this PPP loan. And opening a separate business checking account is the right thing to do. Then you can transfer it to your other account and have substantial records to substantiate the transfer, what you used it for. Written evidence, it's all written evidence. Again, separate business checking account will help you during your forgiveness. Be careful when using the funds to help pay your mortgage and utilities if you work from home. So you might not know, but your accountant is allocating percentage of your home mortgage and your utilities to your home office. So you need to work with them and understand what that percentage is. For example, 20%. That sounds like a reasonable home office expense if you're lucky to have a big home office. So you can only pay 20% of your utilities for your home office from this PPP loan. Again, I'm saying it over and over in this presentation. Understand that there's a difference. Your loan is based on 12.5 weeks. Your forgiveness period is based on 8 weeks. You're going to be 4.5 weeks short. So some of my clients say, well, that's easy. I'll get the loan, and every week I will transfer what I'm supposed to get paid according to this PPP calculation, and I will qualify for the loan forgiveness. Wrong. You will not. You will need, you will not, because if you transfer, you're gonna have, 8 weeks. You're gonna have 4.5 weeks left over of this loan amount. So really work with your CPA on understanding this process and to make sure that you will get your money forgiven. If you use PPP funds for unauthorized purposes, you will have to be repaying them, and you might be charged with fraud. So don't go out, buy a new boat, don't go out, buy a new car. That's not what the loan is for. So, this loan is made so you can hang on till your business reopens and you can start making money again. So please do not go and buy a new computer or start buying equipment. That's not what the loan is for. And I've mentioned earlier that if your bank has stopped accepting applications like Wells Fargo did about right away after the loan started, you can apply to either one of these lenders that was recommended by my banker. And I have a client that actually successfully applied and is now in the stage of signing loan docs. So it is real, it works. And they did not have a relationship, obviously, with this online SBA lender, and they're getting the loan. So what documents will you need? This seminar is a deep dive to help you guys understand the process step by step. So you have gone through homework, you have your 2019 Schedule C, you figured out your numbers. This is step by step what you're going to be expected to fill out this form, which is PPP program application form. You're going to be checking off that you're a sole proprietor. You're going to be using your average monthly payroll and your loan amount. Number of employees, just put one, because for the purposes of this loan, you are an employee, you're one. And they're going to ask you what you need the loan for. You can fill out all your information here. Again, step by step. They will ask you to make sure that you have not defaulted on any SBA program, you're not a criminal, yada, yada. So hopefully you can check off all the no's and move on with this process. Again, more disclosures that you will have to certify. You'll sign it, and that's what it is. So the most important part, Jim, of this application process is knowing your amounts, what you're asking for. That's the most important part. You will not have to make any payments for 6 months following the date that you will be given a loan. So that's a nice deferment period. The interest will continue to accrue at 1%. But again, you have a chance to get everything forgiven at the end of the period. And I'm sure we'll have more seminars on the forgiveness part once we can clear the hurdle of applications and getting the loan. So again, a little graphic here.
A question about that.
Yes,
just curious, Trina. I was just curious about the forgiveness. If the shelter in stay happens and extends, do you think that forgiveness will also be extended down the road to more than 6 months?
Most likely. That's my personal opinion, that the 8 weeks was based on the information that we knew back then. We will know more. So, at this point, we're saying 8 weeks from the time you get the loan. But remember, Jim, not everybody's getting the loans. It's not like they've already gotten them. Some of us can get them at the end of April, at the beginning of May. So we're all going to have our different 8 weeks. And so, the number one step is determining the maximum loan amount. So while we're waiting for more funding, work with your accountant, work with this presentation to determine that amount. That's something you can control, you can do now. Then once it's opened back up, you can apply with your bank right away. You have all the information to apply. And then hopefully once you get it sooner rather than later, then you have to plan for the 100% forgiveness. You're going to have to budget the loan proceeds to use correctly. It's not going to be an easy slam dunk process like a lot of my clients think. They will actually need professional help for that. So that kind of concludes the PPP stage of this presentation. I'm going to jump in quickly into EIDL. It's a product that was available through SBA before any of this PPP stuff was happening. It's an economic injury disaster loan. The whole country is now on a disaster declared area, so everybody can apply. It is a low interest loan with favorable terms. There is some tax return, because it's a loan, there's a tax return and credit check requirement, but it's a good product for, you know, clients that feel like, well, I'll get through this 8 weeks, but then I'll need more money to kind of start back up. So this is a good product to apply for. I work with my clients, and a lot of times they will apply for PPP and EIDL. One does not negate the other. You can apply for both. Here's a link on where to apply.
Question about that. You've mentioned double dipping before. So what's the difference between the PPP and the EIDL in terms of double dipping?
So double dipping, with the concept of double dipping, do not get an IDL and use it for the same purposes as PPP. So, you know, if you're using IDL to pay your employees, why would you do that? You have PPP for it. So kind of keep them separately, but if you do have to use some IDL money to pay your employees, you can always refinance that into PPP. So that's the double dipping concept. Again, IDL is completely separate purposes than PPP, but if you have to use some of it, you can refinance it into PPP. So there is this, in the application for EIDL, you can request up to $10,000 or forgivable grant. What is it? So in the beginning, everybody thought that we're just gonna get all $10,000, no questions asked. I don't know any client that has gotten anything, any response, but basically it's $10,000 that could be used as a grant if they qualify for PPP. So again, if you were the lucky one to get up to $10,000, it's not $10,000, you can get $2,000. That's gonna be a portion that can become a grant if it's refinanced into PPP. And this is just, so I went through the application process myself all the way till submitting to kind of show our viewers on what it looks like and how easy it is and what, you know, and how to apply. That's how it looks once you get to the SBA website. You will be checking that you're a sole proprietor, and that's why I highlighted there. Again, you're gonna be checking stuff that hopefully applies to you, that you're not a criminal. Putting in your personal information, I mean your business information. So questions some of my clients asked, well, I have a social and I have an EIN. And I say, what does your Schedule C say? If it lists your social, list your social here. If it lists your EIN, list your EIN here. Gross revenue, and again, look back at your tax return, Schedule C, what you had. A lot of my clients say, well, cost of goods sold, I don't sell any goods. I'm just a professional, I'm a service person, I'm a graphics designer. Yes, you don't have any cost of goods sold, so put 0. If you don't put 0, the application will freeze. You won't be able to move forward, so put 0 there. Again, put your information there. Current ownership and date the business was established.
What's the difference?
So, okay, there is a difference for the purpose of that. So let's say you bought the business or you've inherited from your parents. I have a client that inherited the business from his parents. He's a dry cleaning store. And so the date the business was established for him is different when he came into the ownership. So, you know, for a lot of people, it's their business. They established it. They have been current owner since the establishment. For some of you, it might be different. If it was passed down, you bought into the business. They just want to make sure that you're not a current owner since April 1st of 2020, and you're just trying to get into this program. They kind of want you to be the owner since before this crisis. That's kind of what it is. Number of employees, Put 0. Again, if you don't put anything, you can't move on with the process. So even if you don't have any employees, just put 0 so you can move on to the next stage. I've highlighted this area where it says no. Is your business owned by a business entity? 99.9% of you will say no to this. You don't have a parent corporation owning your business. Again, if you don't answer that question, you will not be able to go on. Again, personal information about the owner, ownership percent, more owner information. Moving on, additional disclosures that you're not a criminal, blah, blah, blah. So hopefully you can put no for everything. Next interesting point in the application, go ahead and check, yes, I would like to be considered for an advance up to $10,000. It's not guaranteed $10,000. And as I said earlier, it could be a grant if you refinance it into PPP. So any money received under this $10,000 will be rolled over into PPP.
What about the provisions that state that the advance might not have to be repaid?
Yeah, and that's what it means. It might not have to be repaid if you roll it into the PPP and it becomes a forgivable portion of PPP. So that's what it is. So people at the beginning, when all these programs came out, people thought that, oh, we're just going to get this $10,000. It's going to be free money, forgiven. Not so fast, not so fast. So again, refinance into the PPP, the same rules will apply for using it correctly. They will ask you where to send the funds. So you put in your business checking account. I'm just waiting, Jim, for more stories about fraud on this. I'm sure fraudsters out there are just itching to get their information on that, but they want to give you the money electronically, and that's where you put in. Make sure you put in the right account number and the routing number. It's not like there is a person, maybe ask your wife or your husband to double check the input, because there is not a person to call and say, hey, you sent it to the wrong account. So kind of be diligent on that. And that's the end of the application. You just, make your certification, click next, and that's the EIDL. That's the third step. And I just want to point out the important timeline of this whole exercise. You have your 12 months prior. That's your 2019 Schedule C. That's what you're going to base your loan amount on. Once you get that loan, you have the 8 weeks to spend it correctly and to apply for forgiveness. Just like Jim mentioned, it could be longer than 8 weeks. We just don't know. We hope it's only 8 weeks, but we will know more, and we'll obviously let our listeners know. And don't worry, if some of the amount was not forgiven or spent correctly, you have 2 years from the date your bank denies you forgiveness to repay any unforgiven balance and any accrued interest. Again, for my clients, our goal is to get 100% loan forgiveness, and we're going to work with each and every one of them to make sure that it happens. And at the end, I'm putting useful links. Again, be very careful where you get your sources. Don't get them on social media, or don't even get them on media. Most of my sources are through SBA itself, and that's the authoritative body that regulates this whole program. And a small disclaimer that although I try really, really hard on keeping everything up to date, the information might change as it comes down, as we get more guidance. So it's not meant to be all comprehensive. It's just the information that we know as of right now. And that's it, Jim. That comes to the end of our program. You're still on mute, so unmute yourself.
Yeah, I know that. So amazingly comprehensive. So your best professional guess, I know a lot has changed just in the past few weeks. Do you think this is going to be pretty much the same for the next month or two, or do you anticipate any other changes or things that might happen that can change the whole process again?
I don't think there's going to be major changes. I think there is going to be definitely clarification. So AICPA is the body that regulates CPAs, and they're constantly asking Congress and the Treasury. They have a Q&A session with them. Just say, okay, what did you mean by that? So every week we get more and more guidance, but the process is pretty much in place now. What I'm interested to see is more clarity on the forgiveness. Right now, we're all in the stage of how do we even apply? Is there money? But once we all get it, then we're going to shift our focus into forgiveness. And I know they're going to give us actual calculations and worksheets that we can work with our clients on that. But we know a lot more than we did 2 weeks ago, Jim. That's for sure.
And ultimately, if the money was to run out again, you'd expect them to come up with another stimulus package to be able to keep funding it.
Yeah, I don't think there's, you know, it is really, and just from talking among our profession, the banks don't want you to have the loan. The government doesn't want you to have that loan. They want to forgive this amounts, and they want us all to move on and, you know, past that. So I don't think it's anybody has an intentions of shutting anybody out, and, you know, it's just they didn't anticipate, you know, this much demand. I don't know why, but they didn't.
That seems crazy. So what's the biggest problem that you see the small business owner, the entrepreneur has right now? Is it just not moving forward fast?
Yeah, they're just not
getting
moving.
these moving.
Yeah, they're just not moving fast enough, Jim. They kind of getting stuck on how do I come up with the numbers? Do I even qualify? And so I just tell them, just come on, let's work together. Just move this process forward, because even if you come up with the wrong amount, it could still be modified under safe harbor later. So yeah, they should definitely contact their CPA and work with them, and just don't get discouraged. That's the most important thing. Just be optimistic about it. And, you know, really control what you can control, and that's your numbers, and that's the speed with which you apply, and then let's just hope for the best. I just don't think they're going to let this program run out. So
Awesome. Any final words you want to share?
Just like I said, keep positive, keep optimistic, control what you can, and know your numbers, and we'll all get through it together. As we know, as we have more information, we'll share with our viewers. So.